Congratulations, you've scored the interview. This means you've either done a great job marketing yourself through your resume cover letter and or your network. Now, potential employers just want to know how you'll fit in with their team. I've developed this lecture based on the questions I've received about interviews over the years, as well as my experience as a hiring manager. Preparation will help you feel more confident and perform better under pressure. And preparation starts with learning about the organization. Hopefully you've done some of this legwork through your resume cover letter preparation, but if not, now's a good time to start. We've covered this particular aspect in other lectures and readings, the dreaded questions. It really doesn't hurt to have a basic, ready answer to some of these questions. While I don't agree with the value of some of these questions, they are, unfortunately, often asked. Don't have your answers down word for word. That comes across as canned, because it is. But prepared is a different matter altogether. Please take time to prepare for some of these basic, unfortunate questions that you're likely to be asked. Now, interviewing is stressful for everyone, so some nervousness is natural. It's expected. However, you can take steps to feel more confident. 1. Know that the person interviewing you is sometimes just as nervous as you. Unfortunately, we often ask people without great interviewing skills, or any interviewing skills, to tackle the job of interviewing potential candidates. Having said that, start by reminding yourself that you have value to offer the employer, and the employer already thinks highly enough of you to invite you to an interview. If some aspect of your appearance or background makes you uneasy, correct it if possible in advance, or offset it by emphasizing positive traits about yourself, such as your warmth, wit, intelligence, or charm. Instead of dwelling on your weaknesses, focus on your strengths, and always bear back or double back on those strengths. Instead of worrying about how you will perform in the interview, focus on how you can help the organization succeed. So much like how you prepared a resume and cover letter, prepare for an interview by thinking about what would the employer want and how can I fill that need. As with public speaking, the more prepared you are, the more confident you'll be. Competence and confidence are the foundation of your interviewing style, and you can enhance these by giving the interviewer an impression of poise, good manners, and good judgment. You can develop an adept style by staging mock interviews with a friend, family member, roommate. You can record these practice sessions and then evaluate them yourself, looking for opportunities to improve. As you stage your mock interviews, pay particular attention to your nonverbal behavior, including your posture, eye contact, facial expressions, and gestures. I've included a video lecture in this module that focuses on this aspect. Pay close attention to your speaking voice as well. If you tend to speak in a monotone voice, for instance, practice speaking in a livelier style with more inflection and emphasis, but only as you're comfortable with this. And work on eliminating speech mannerisms such as no, you know, like, and which might make you sound inarticulate. This is something you can overcome. And I do recall a particular candidate who I started to count the likes for. Don't let this be you. In addition to encountering a variety of interview formats, expect to be interviewed through a variety of media. For example, email and online interviews have become more common. Email is used as a screening stage, and while you have almost no opportunity to send or receive nonverbal signals with these formats, you do have the major advantage of being able to review and edit each response before you send it. Maintain professionalism in your responses, and be sure to ask questions that demonstrate your knowledge of the company and the position. Again, research rears its ugly head. With online interviews, these can range from simple structured questionnaires that you have to answer, or tests, or sophisticated job simulations that closely mimic actual job situations and skills. But for now, let's look more specifically at some additional mediated interview formats that you're likely to encounter. The first one is the phone interview. To succeed at a telephone interview, treat it as seriously as an in-person interview. Be prepared with a copy of your resume and any correspondence you sent to the employer. Know your audience. Before placing the telephone call, learn about the person or people you're calling. You can find out this information through general number, sometimes online, or through the Human Resources Department. Choose a quiet location where you feel comfortable and where you will not be disturbed. Begin the call professionally. In some cases, you may be asked to call the company. In other situations, you will be receiving a call. When you place the call, identify yourself before asking for the person you're calling and indicate that you are returning a call or are calling at the person's request. For example, "Good afternoon. This is Maggie Smith. Pat Kujewski asked me to call. Is she available?" When you receive a scheduled call, do not answer the call immediately after the phone rings. This is a little too eager. Instead, answer after the second ring. Before answering, take a deep breath, smile, and state your name. I know the smiling part seems weird, but research shows that people can hear your smile over the phone. So something to the effect of, "Good morning, this is Maggie Smith." When you make or answer a call, introduce yourself the same way you would if you met the interviewer face to face. "Hello, Ms. Kujewski. I'm Maggie Smith. It's nice to meet you." Again, be sure to smile. Next, know your medium. If you're communicating by telephone, try to use a landline rather than a cell phone to increase the chances of a good connection and minimize the possibility of a dropped or lost call. If a search committee is involved in the hiring process, several people will participate in the virtual interview. In these cases, they may be gathered in a conference room and use a single speakerphone to communicate with you. Write down the interviewers' names and job titles as they introduce themselves. If they don't provide job titles, ask for them so you can ask specific questions that relate to people's positions. Communicating via speakerphone can be difficult. If many people speak at once, it's very difficult to identify to whom you should respond. During the conversation, feel free to ask people to repeat or reword a question if you did not hear them clearly or are not sure what they are asking you. Avoid distracting noises. Don't chew gum, drink beverages, or eat anything during the interview. Yes, this has happened. Avoid tapping your fingers or pencil, which communicates your nervousness and might be heard. Press the mute key or cover the phone's mouthpiece if you need to clear your throat, cough, or sneeze. If using a landline or computer, turn off your cell phone so that you're not distracted by other calls or texts. Project a professional voice. Remember that you won't be able to use nonverbal signals to create a good impression. So a positive, alert tone of voice is vital. Speak clearly and at a normal pace. When nervous, many people tend to speak very quickly. Be slightly more formal than you normally are. Say yes instead of yeah. And again, avoid fillers such as like, and Let the caller complete a question before rushing to answer it. Pause before speaking to gather your thoughts. Breathe deeply, articulate your words, and smile. Again, smiling brightens the tone of your voice. Finally, end the call professionally. Thank your interviewers for taking the time to speak with you. If you're talking to just one person, use his or her name. Let the interviewer hang up first. You want to be sure that the interviewer does not have any last-minute questions to ask before you hang up. Next, many employers are beginning to use video technology for both live and recorded interviews. Prepare for a video interview as you would an in-person interview and take the extra steps needed to become familiar with the equipment, software, and the process. Skype, for example, is becoming popular with employers who want to get a good sense of a candidate's professional image. In addition to following the advice for all virtual interviews, follow these video-specific guidelines. Create a professional profile for whatever software you're using, with a professional sounding username and the same profile picture you use for social media profiles. Again, these social media profiles should now be professional and appropriate, as should your username for email. Select a professional background, such as a conference room or a neatly organized bookshelf or desk, and try to avoid blank walls. Good lighting will illuminate you without casting shadows, so practice with this. And place your computer between you and a sunny window or table lamp. That might be helpful. You may also want to think about using face powder. For some reason, sometimes the video conferencing makes you seem a little more shiny, and shiny translates as nervous or dishonest. Weird stuff we've learned through a lot of media training. Ensure a good connection and equipment. Use good body language. During any video interview, remember to sit up straight and focus on the camera, not the computer. Practice in advance. Pay attention to tone, volume of voice, attire, eye contact, etc. Also, be sure that you don't stand up if you're not wearing pants. Yes, this has happened. At this point, you have a good sense of the overall process and know how to prepare for your interviews. The next step is to get familiar with the 3 stages of every interview: the warm-up, the question and answer session, and the close. Let's get started. Of the 3 stages, the warm-up is the most important, even though it may account for only a small fraction of the time you spend in the actual interview. Studies suggest that many interviewers make up their minds within the first 20 seconds of contact with a candidate. Again, you get just one shot at a first impression. For this reason, project a professional presence. Manage your first impressions by arriving early, looking ready to work. What does that mean? Be awake, look awake. I once came to get a candidate from the meeting room, and the candidate had his eyes closed and was slouched over on the chair. Looked like he was about to die or keel over on me. Make a good impression as you wait. As I say this, look and be productive and professional. In other words, don't take personal calls or play on your phone while you're waiting in the waiting area. Again, don't slouch, lounge, yawn. Someone is likely taking stock of your actions while you wait. Greet people professionally. All people. This includes the guard, reception person, all support staff should be treated with courtesy and respect. These people may offer feedback about you and can serve as gatekeepers. For example, one particular candidate was really rude to our door person who was also our security guard. The security guard remembered, and when this person was called back for another interview, the security guard would not allow clearance for this person to come up for the second interview. It happens. Also, be prepared for meals and social gatherings. I've had situations where someone will suggest grabbing coffee or a drink or a meal. Follow the lead of the person interviewing you. Don't let your guard down if it appears that the interviewer wants to engage in what feels like small talk. These exchanges are every bit as important as structured questions. Body language is crucial at this point. Stand up or sit up straight. Maintain regular but natural eye contact and try not to fidget. When the interviewer extends a hand, respond with a firm but not overpowering handshake. Practice your handshake. If someone says to you, "This feels like a limp fish," you need to practice. If someone says, "This feels like a death grip," practice your handshake. Again, first impressions. Repeat the interviewer's name when you're introduced. "It's a pleasure to meet you, Mrs. Litton." Wait until you're asked to be seated or the interviewer has taken a seat. Let the interviewer start the discussion. Then, be ready to answer 1 or 2 substantial questions right away. For example, "Why do you want to work here?" Or "What do you know about us?" Physical appearance is important because clothing and grooming reveal a candidate's personality, professionalism, and an ability to sense the unspoken quote-unquote rules of a situation. Send a clear signal that you understand the business world or professional world and know how to adapt to it. You won't be taken seriously otherwise. I hate to be the bearer of bad news. I don't make these rules. I'm just sharing how these work with you. For that reason, evaluate your own professional appearance. Employers cite dressing inappropriately as one of the biggest mistakes job applicants make in job interviews. Wear business formal attire to interviews, even at more casual companies. Understand the parameters of both business formal and business casual. For this reason, I've included more detailed information in this week's module. And of course, we want to make sure that you're clean, well-groomed, and again, turn off your cell phone. You can prepare further for that first impression by doing some legwork a day or two before the interview. When you go to your interview, take a small notebook, a pen, a list of the questions you want to ask, several copies of your resume in a protected folder, an outline of what you have learned about the organization, and any past correspondence about the position. You may also want to take a transcript of your college grades, a list of references, and a portfolio containing samples of your work, performance reviews, and certificates of achievement. If you want to use a tablet for taking notes, ask the interviewer's permission. Also, again, have your cell phone turned off. Be sure you know when and where the interview will be held. The worst way to start any interview is to be late. Verify the route and time required to get there, even if that means traveling there ahead of time. Plan to arrive early, at least 30 minutes early. When you arrive, you may have to wait for a while. And actually, if you've arrived, as you should, 30 minutes early, wait in your car or wait outside in an inconspicuous area. You don't want to come in for the interview 30 minutes early. 10 minutes is appropriate, 5 is best. But again, when you arrive, even though you're on time, you may have to wait for a while. Use this time to review key messages about yourself that you want to get across in the interview. Again, conduct yourself professionally while waiting. And again, show respect for everyone you encounter. Also, avoid chewing gum, eating, or drinking. This is really not the time to carry around your hydration bottle or yerba mate tea can. Anything you do or say at this stage may get back to the interviewer, so make sure your best qualities show from the moment you enter the premises. Questions and answers will consume the greatest part of the interview. The interviewer will ask you about your qualifications and discuss many of the points mentioned in your resume. You'll also be asking questions of your own. Let the interviewer lead the conversation and never answer a question before he or she is finished asking it. Tailor your answers to make a favorable impression. Don't limit yourself to yes or no answers. If you're asked a difficult question, pause to think before responding. Periodically ask a question or two from the list you've prepared. You'll not only get answers, but you'll demonstrate your interest and research. Paying attention when the interviewer speaks can be as important as giving good answers or asking good questions. The interviewer's facial expression, eye movement, gestures, and posture may tell you the real meaning of what is being said. Be especially aware of how your answers are received. Employers cannot legally discriminate against a job candidate based on the basis of race, color, gender, age, marital status, religion, national origin, or disability. If you are asked questions that are personal or potentially unlawful, how you respond depends on how badly you want the job, how you feel about revealing the information asked for, what you think the interviewer will do with the information, and whether you want to work for a company that would ask such questions. In rare cases, employers may ask questions that are inappropriate or illegal. For example, employers are prohibited by federal law from asking personal questions about your family or health, though they may collect demographic information once you are employed. Application forms may request that you volunteer information about your nationality, ethnicity, or race to document equal employment opportunity the government requires, but you are not obligated to provide this data. Other inappropriate topics include your age, marital status, children, whether you plan to have them or not, family history, religion, or affiliations. While employers may ask whether you have a disability or physical condition that would prevent you from fulfilling the requirements of the job, general questions about medical information are not allowed under federal law. As you prepare responses in advance, think about how you would handle inappropriate questions, asking for information not related to the job. You can choose to answer, refuse to answer, or redirect the question to something that is more job-related. This last option is a useful skill to practice. I ask my students who've worked with me in the past to do this. It's a great way to handle any type of sticky situation. Now, you also need to compose good answers and good questions. Interviewers commonly ask candidates, "What questions do you have?" Not having good questions to ask is another common and detrimental interview mistake. This is according to a most recent poll by hiring managers by Harris Interactive. You should ask 3 or 4 questions to demonstrate your interest in the job. However, do not ask questions that you could have easily researched on your own. Also, avoid asking questions that are more relevant once you have been offered a position. For example, questions about benefits or health insurance and retirement plans. If you've done your research, you should be able to ask several meaningful and appropriate questions about the company and the position. The end of the interview is more important than its duration would indicate. In the last few minutes, emphasize your value to the organization and correct any misconceptions the interviewer might have. You can generally tell when the interviewer is trying to conclude the session. When you get the signal, respond promptly, but don't rush. Thank the interviewer for the opportunity and express an interest in the organization and position. If you can do so comfortably, try to pin down what will happen next, but don't press for an immediate decision, of course. If you do receive an offer during the interview, you'll naturally want to discuss salary. However, let the interviewer raise the subject. If asked your salary requirements, say that you would expect to receive the standard salary for the job in question. But ask that you can review a written offer before making a decision. Don't try to negotiate and don't try to discuss salary at this point unless you have an offer in writing. There are many benefits to doing this. Maintain a notebook or simple database with information about each company, interviews, answers to your questions, contact information for each interviewer, the status of thank you notes, which we'll talk about in a moment, and upcoming interview appointments. Carefully organized notes will help you decide which company is the right fit for you when it comes to choose from the job offers you're likely to have received. Staying in contact with a prospective employer after an interview shows that you really want the job and are determined to get it. Doing so also gives you another chance to demonstrate your communication skills and sense of business etiquette. Following up brings your name to the interviewer's attention once again and reminds him or her that you're actively looking and waiting for their decision. Anytime you hear from a company during the application or interview process, be sure to respond quickly. Companies flooded with resumes may move on to another candidate if they don't hear back from you within 24 hours. Here's a very important piece. You must write a thank you message. I highly recommend what I call the 2-touch. This is an immediate email message and an immediate handwritten card. This 2-touch is 1, the email, which immediately says, "Thank you, I appreciate this." And the card, which will come a couple days later, reminds them of you again and provides information about, again, good manners, etiquette, and professionalism. If you're not advised of the interviewer's decision by the promised date or within 2 weeks, you might make an inquiry. Don't make an inquiry the next day or 2 days later. A message of inquiry, which can be handled by email if the interviewer has given you his or her email address, is particularly appropriate, especially if you've received a job offer from a second firm and don't want to accept it before you have an answer from this one. If you receive a job offer while other interviews are still pending, you'll probably want more time to decide. So write to the offering organization and ask for a time extension. Preface this request with a friendly opening. Ask for more time, stressing your enthusiasm for the organization, and conclude by allowing for a quick decision if your request for additional time is denied. Ask for a prompt reply confirming the time extension if the organization does grant it. When you don't receive a job offer, you may feel hurt or angry. But rather than taking the rejection personally, use it as one last opportunity to make a good impression by writing a final message to your interviewer. If you suspect that you have not been hired based on negative results from a background check, you're entitled to receive a free copy of this report. According to a study by the National Consumer Law Center, 93% of employers perform background checks on potential employees and new hires. 60% of private employers use credit checks to screen applicants. Others verify claims made on your resume and in the job interview as well, and look at news reports and criminal records. Again, social media is another area where people start to look for candidates, verification of candidates' information. Because many applicants are damaged by incorrect information, again, request results to make sure that you can clean up these reports before a future interview. Also, you can ask for information about what you can improve on for future opportunities. Finally, go get 'em, Aggies. Again, you've been given the interview. This means you're a viable candidate. Show them the great skills that you've learned and how well you've prepared to be a great asset to this organization.